Well, hello everybody, happy Friday. Before we get to today's cooking video, we had a mail call. And well, I've already set it to make it easier to get out. It's a thank you card. You can see that. And it says, Dear Ian, thank you for the towel, the coins, and the stickers, and the endless match. We will use the towel for the same purpose you use yours. Take care and have a blessed life, my friend. Tony Walsh. That's Tony from Walsh Farms. If you haven't watched his channel, I encourage you to do so. I'll put a link in the description box to Walsh Farms. Tony's a great Christian fellow. Does Farm Truck Fridays, time of prayer and reflection, and usually some tips for living a Christian life. And I know you'll enjoy him, so go show Tony some love. Now stay tuned and we'll carry on with today's recipe. Poorman's Filet Mignon.
When I first came to this land, not much money in my hand. So I bought myself a farm and I did what I could. And I called my farm Muscle in the Arm. But the land was sweet and good and I did what I could. When I first came to this land, not much money in my hand. So I built myself a shack, and I did what I could. And I called my shack Break My Back, and I called my farm Muscle in the Arm. But the land was sweet and good, and I did what I could. When I first came to this land, not much money in my hand. So I bought myself a horse, and I did what I could. And I called my horse Trouble, of course. And I called my farm Muscle in the Arm. And I called my shack Break My Back. But the land was sweet and good, and I did what I could. When I first came to this land, not much money in my hand. So I bought myself a cow, and I did what I could. And I called my cow No Milk Now, and I called my horse Trouble, of course, and I called my shack Break My Back, and I called my farm Muscle in the Arm. But the land was sweet and good, and I did what I could.
Well, I sang that song because of the basic underlying theme of not having much money in one's hand. And today we're going to make something that you can do rather inexpensively, and that is make Poorman's Filet Mignon. How are we going to do that? Well, it's a 2-day process. Neither time takes much time, but today we're going to do the prep work on the beef. So let's get to it, shall we? Okay, so to start with, you're going to want a pound of large cut stew beef. Now, you want to rinse as much of the blood out as possible and then squeeze out as much of the water. And the reason for that is osmosis, because we're going to replace the fluids we've taken out with marinade. So, what do we want? Well, we're going to want 2 teaspoons of garlic powder. We're going to want 1 teaspoon of onion salt. And 1 teaspoon of a steak and burger seasoning, or steak or burger seasoning. I'm using, this one is Co-op Gold steak and burger seasoning. You could buy Montreal steak seasoning, or well, there's all kinds of different ones out there, but whatever your preference is. And you're going to want about a teaspoon of that. We're going to sprinkle that in there. And now we want to mix that all together and make sure that the meat's all coated. Now, part of this is filet mignon. The meat is very tender cut of meat normally, and of course stew beef tends to be a tougher cut. So we want to marinate it get it tender. So once you've got your seasonings on there, the next and final step of the preparation is buy yourself an inexpensive red wine. Now this one's Broken Bridge Ranch and Winery Cabernet Merlot. And we're just going to pour that over. Now you can use an expensive red wine if you prefer, but for what we're doing, I think an inexpensive one's the best way to go. And just want to make sure your meat is submerged in there. And that's the first step of our process. We'll cover that. We'll just cover that with some saran wrap or cling wrap or whatever you want to call it. Plastic wrap. And we're going to put it in the fridge until tomorrow when we will do the assembly step of our filet mignon. So, doesn't have to be airtight, just more to keep it from splashing around in the fridge than anything else. So that's step one. I hope you'll stay tuned. We'll be back in a couple of seconds. It'll be tomorrow for me, but a couple of seconds for you. We'll be back and start assembling our filet mignon. All right, here we are, day 2 of our poor man's filet mignon. Our meat has been marinating for 24 hours in the fridge in our red wine marinade. So the first thing we're going to do is drain off our marinade. All right, our marinade's been drained off. And so now, I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday, but for your stew beef, you want large chunk stew beef, not small chunk. And now what we're going to do is we're going to wrap our chunks of meat in bacon. So you want to get yourself some good bacon. If I can separate this here. And you're going to take a chunk of meat. This is pretty simple. Take your bacon. And wrap your meat. And you'll want some toothpicks just to hold that bacon in place. There we go. There's our first one. Ready to go on the barbecue or in the fry pan, however you want to cook it. On the grill. There we go. So you can take your meat, roll it up. And pin it with a... I'm just putting mine into a container to hold them. Let's do one more on camera here. I'm sure you don't want to be bored stiff watching me wrap every single one. Now you could also do this with a cheap steak. Just cut it into chunks and do it up. But as I say, this is for a poor man and one of the cheapest things you can buy beef-wise, if you're watching your pennies, is a packet of stew beef. So there you go. Buy yourself some cheap bacon. Don't have to have the best bacon for this. Some stew beef, some inexpensive, or if you prefer to use the word cheap, red wine. Now, inexpensive red wine in Canada is not as inexpensive red wine in the States. I was shocked when I first moved back to Canada. I was used to, this was back in the early 80s, I was used to buying a big jug of red table wine for under $5. And when I got up here, a regular bottle of wine, the cheapest thing I could find, was about $5. I couldn't find a gallon jug of red wine for $5 in Canada would be, you'd probably have people lined up around the block to buy it. And this bottle of red wine that I was using was inexpensive. It was $6.95 Canadian, which would probably be about, with current exchange rate, probably about $4.95 US. But like I say, yes, you don't need an expensive wine for doing this. Just want an inexpensive one. Wrap these up. Now, another name for this is medallions of beef in bacon. You can call it whatever you want. I'm calling it poor man's filet mignon. And you'll find that once you've cooked this, you're going to have a real tender, melt in your mouth little beef treat. Now for you guys with hearty appetites, you're going to want a bunch of these, aren't you? so don't skimp. Alrighty, I think I'll leave it there for now. I don't think you need to watch me wrap every one. You get the idea. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's recipe, and I'll give it a try. I'll put a picture at the end of how these look after they've been cooked up on the barbecue. This is what Glennis and I are having for supper tonight. I don't know if the two of us will be able to eat them all tonight, but if not, we can either have them for leftovers tomorrow night or freeze them for another day. So I may just cook up enough for us for tonight and freeze the rest for a future date. That's an easy thing to do. Just wrap them in saran wrap and then maybe in some tin foil, and then put them in a Ziploc freezer bag. Mark what they are, and you're good to go. Take out as many as you need or as few as you need. Alrighty, if you're new to the land and have not much money in your hand, here's a quick, easy, and delicious recipe that doesn't cost a whole lot. So until Tuesday with Tuesdays with the Pilgrim, take care, stay safe, and God bless.